Hey y'all, it is Taylor Bridges here, back with another video, another review of Ready to Love Season 7, Episode 10. This episode is titled Bro Code Broken. Y'all, if you'll be so kind, please like, comment, subscribe to my channel. I really appreciate any sort of interaction, feedback I get. If you agree with me, you disagree with me, whatever it is, I really appreciate it. I'm so grateful for your support. Everyone is heading over to the getaway house, and they do this trip every season. And I like to see who rides up to the getaway together, right? You get to see who's really coupling up at this point, because it's a bold statement if you're like dating two, if you have a connection with 2 or 3 people, but you ride to the getaway with one of those people. Usually on the seasons, they dodge that by just riding up with themselves or with a group of guys or girls or whoever. But it says something if you have multiple connections and you ride up to the getaway with one of your connections, because that's an intimate like time, right, spent. And I also like to see the car ride to the getaway also show what friendships have been formed, because if the guys ride together or the girls ride together, it's like, oh, okay, y'all must be clicking or getting along pretty well. The Mercedes, the big hair, the 80s hairstyle with the blue eyeshadow that Mercedes was wearing in her confessional, in my opinion, was not flattering at all. Anthony, Lyndon, and Tony are riding together to the getaway, and that was so random to me. Tony did not look amused, but I was like, maybe that's just his demeanor when he's with the guys. Maybe he's just unamused pretty often. Maybe that's just his thing. I don't know. But at this point, all Tony has left is Morgan. At this point, and that's who he's sharing with Lyndon. And last episode, they preview a spar between Tony and Lyndon. And I think it's because Tony is holding on to Morgan like the last piece of chicken wing in the box. He doesn't want to go home, so he's just being competitive at this point. That's what I started the episode thinking, right? They get to the address that Tommy gave them, and it was this swampland. Tommy ends up pulling up on a boat, gives this extra dramatic introduction to them. This was all dramatic. The whole thing was just dramatic. Then they take the couples for a little water adventure on the swamp. It looked super fun, and Andre looked ridiculous. The more he wears his hair like that while out in public, like, it's to the point where Andre will wear his hair like that to a meeting, to the club, to a fancy dinner, and that's a problem. Like, that should be a workout hairstyle, or while you're chilling around the house kind of hairstyle. So the more I see it, the more I see that he really wears his hair like that on a normal basis, the more irritated with him I become for making that decision. It looked like some of the men and women were going to share rooms, which definitely adds another level of spice to the group, to the season. Lyndon always looks like he's hunching his shoulders to his ears. It's just something I noticed. Lyndon and Tony are playing pool. Lyndon wants to compete for Morgan's honor. Tony wants to compete for where Morgan will sleep that night. Tony's bet gave off competitive to prove himself better, more alpha than Lyndon, right? As opposed to competing for Morgan for her benefit. Lyndon's bet was much more gentlemanlike, but Tony is a meathead, so that explains that, right? Lyndon is being a much better sport. He's all lighthearted. Tony is just being a meathead, but whatever. Morgan walks in and she's enjoying the competition. It has her cheesing, right? This is what she's been wanting from Tony all season thus far. And now that Tony has literally no other woman on the show to pay attention to, he's now ready to be laser focused on Morgan. And that's what the show is about ultimately, right? So I'm not shading Tony. I just want Morgan to recognize that. Just based on what she's been asking of him the whole season. And to also recognize that Lyndon keeps referencing her honor. Tony, the meathead, keeps referencing them sleeping in the bed together. Mark Anthony and Mercedes are really cute, and they're naturally affectionate. They're vibing with each other. I like it. I really love it. Andre and Jeffree are making out. Jeffree does seem like a sweetheart, despite the annoying voice, right? I think all of them are, even Morgan. I think this cast of women, they seem to get along quite well, other than like the Suann and Jeffree spat. The whole cast seems like they've been getting along pretty well this whole time, so I'm thinking maybe we'll have some other relationships that formed by the time we get to the reunion, right? And I do prefer this over a divisive cast, because then that's when it gets dramatic and catty. And I'm thinking of the season with like Cornelius and Camille and was it Dakia? Not Dakia. She was on that season, but I can't the girl, she was like a dark brown, and she liked I can't think of his name, who was bald. They were vibing together too. I can't think, but like, remember the girl and Aisha? They were getting into it at the getaway. And that cast was just super divided drastically, and it just messed up the flow. The drama on this show should be between the romantic relationships, not the other cast members. At least if it's going to be with the other cast members, the drama can't outweigh the drama from the love connections. Because we're not here for like the y'all to be arguing with each other. We're here for y'all to make connections. That's what we want to see. So the entire group is sitting around the table to eat. Pardon me. And Morgan and Tony are sitting next to each other. And Lyndon comes to sit on the opposite side of Morgan, and and that's placing Morgan in the middle of both of the gentlemen. He starts to make all these comments, Tony, about how, he's all agitated about Lyndon sitting right there. He's threatening to switch seats and get up and all this stuff, and Morgan's loving it. Just stop, Tony. Just ignore him. Tony, just ignore him. Like, actually, these are red flags that Tony is exhibiting. Like, nothing is going on right now. Like, nothing is happening. They're about to eat. Everybody's about to eat. It's not that deep. And he was being childish. Mind you, Lyndon and Morgan don't even have a love connection like that. So what is all of this for? Anthony is spending some quality time with Suann. He's showing his personality a bit more so far this episode, but I'm not too sure how genuine he's being. Like, where did all this sudden interest and like for Suann come from? It was literally like day and night. I don't know. It just seemed like he was trying to make a last-ditch effort to secure connection, sow a seed, if you will. It just wasn't genuine. And I was really surprised to see him behave like that, since he's been so poised up until now. Cynthia and Andre are having quality time. Remember last episode, he was starting to side-eye Cynthia and question her authenticity, okay? Cynthia's overall look and glam, the hair, makeup, and top off the shoulders was gorgeous. I really love, in her confessional, I really loved that look on her. Cynthia says she's more open with Anthony than Andre, and she doesn't know if she can deal with all the flashiness of Andre. And I do think Andre is flashy, but I actually think he has a pretty pleasing core. I think he's a pretty good dude. I mean, I think he's pretty decent. I don't think he's the dude for Cynthia, but I think he'd be a decent dude for somebody. Like, I do. Jeffree is asking Tony for advice on who to choose between Mark Anthony and Andre. And I don't know if it was just me, but this scene was super cringy. Tony, with his voice he was using and constantly saying, it's love, it's love, it's just love, it's just love. Like, he offered nothing helpful. Nothing. The point was for her to receive advice and counsel, you meathead. But Morgan is stunning. I'm glad Morgan clocked Tony about getting on her case about having two connections, when just up until a few days ago, literally last episode, Tony had two connections too. And Tony is correct that Lyndon isn't really a connection for Morgan, but still, like, let her rock. Let her do her thing. And now Tony is acting with Morgan how Morgan was acting with Tony in the beginning. Every time he's around Morgan, he's bringing up another man. He's bringing up Lyndon. Oh, how the tables have turned. Like, y'all are perfect for each other. Lyndon asked Tony, when they're all at the table, mind you, at dinner, everyone's sitting together. This is another scene. This is later on that same day, like later that evening, they're all at dinner together. Lyndon asked Tony who would he send home, and I thought that was a great, juicy question. Tony says, all that matters is that Morgan stays, and I thought that was a fair answer. Lyndon reminds Tony that they're in the same boat. Lyndon then speculates about what would happen if Marcia were still there. But then Tony brings it back to Morgan being his number one. Tony asks how Lyndon feels knowing he has a deeper connection with Morgan than Lyndon does. And Morgan is just sitting there eating it all up with her beautiful natural skin, okay? He compares him and Morgan kissing 4, 5, 6 times and Lyndon and Morgan never kissing. Like, Tony is so childish. And by this point, I'm thinking production has to have put him up to this, right? To get things popping and interesting, because there is no way you cannot tell me Tony is this ridiculous and jealous. If so, it's unacceptable at Tony's big age. But then Lyndon plays Tony's messy game by revealing that Tony told him if Marcia was still there, Lyndon could have Morgan. You can have my leftovers. Now, my initial thought was, I don't know if I could believe that, because Tony definitely seemed to be more into Morgan than Marcia. Marcia was just an extra body to keep him on the show. That's what I was thinking. So I was hoping Lyndon wasn't just talking out the side of his neck. But then Tony admits to saying it. Like, wow. That's super foul of Tony. But are we really surprised? Because here's what it is. Like, I'm not surprised at all that Tony. I'm not surprised at Tony being an F-boy. That's what I'm saying. That's not a surprise. But I'm surprised he's being an F-boy to Morgan for Marcia. That's the disconnect for me. And Lyndon's not letting up on Tony. And Lyndon has the upper hand because he's calm and collected. See, Tony's getting flustered now, especially since he's been put on the spot in front of everybody. When up until now in this episode, he's been fronting on Lyndon, trying to sun Lyndon. Tony says he said all of that out of anger, and Lyndon said that Tony was actually saying it quite casually. I'm telling y'all, Lyndon was not letting up. So then Tony tries to deflect and project it back onto Lyndon, saying Lyndon has been a nuisance and how he's going to lose. But does Morgan hear that? Tony wants Lyndon to lose. Tony wants to win. He just admitted he was pretty much more into Marcia and was willing to put you on the wayside. But now that she's gone, he's coming to win you, Morgan. Now he's coming to win you. Then Tony starts with all this tough talk, and that's because he's flustered. He's embarrassed, and he's trying to put Lyndon down because that's what he has to do to feel better about himself. But I'm liking Lyndon now, because not only is he not backing down from Tony, he's doing it with ease, grace, and class. And Tony is heated. That's why he tells Lyndon they can step outside and be men about it. Like, what the heck are you talking about? What a corny dude. How ghetto. Maybe him and Morgan are better off together. Morgan storms off to cool down. Lyndon goes to check on her. And I can bet that instead of going to check on Morgan, Tony is still back at that table talking ish, trying to get his point across when he needs to just let it go and stop digging himself into a deeper hole. What is Jeffrey wearing? She has on a green swimsuit top with brown leggings and waist beads and a full face of makeup. Where's Jeffrey going? She's spending time in the backyard with Andre, but only Andre gets in the hot tub initially. When she does get in, she's still in her leggings. It looks crazy. I'm like, why did y'all film this scene? Why didn't you go put on a swimsuit? What are you doing? Jeffrey's so weird. Sometimes. Then her and Andre do another one of those lipstick everywhere kisses. Like, come on. The producers can't hand them a napkin or something. Nobody want to see that. Like, that's for y'all to look at. I don't want to see that. It's gross. Tony goes later in the evening to Morgan's room. He understands he put Morgan in an odd position, and he apologizes to Morgan. He says he didn't mean what he said, but then he gaslights her and pretty much reneges all accountability. Morgan says she's heeding to Cynthia's advice, which is to pay attention to how somebody treats you, and she says that Tony is mean to her when he's mad. Tony's grown, flips it back on her, saying he's not gonna get into all of that, insinuating that there's a back and forth blame game to get into. And how does she expect him to respond when she's entertaining Lyndon? As if Morgan brought this on herself. As if she's responsible for his blow up with Lyndon. I just hope Morgan has her eyes open. Tony is controlling. He's jealous. He's unaccountable. He's a gaslighter. He's manipulative. And he's sneaky. He asks her, how do they continue? And she says she doesn't know. But that's not good enough for him. Like, dude, some bombs just got dropped at the table. She's still processing and trying to understand what happened. And your weird non-apology sure does not help get more sure of where she stands with you. So pipe down and give her some space. He know he messed up. So he's feeling exposed and he's insecure and he's trying to force her into submission so to secure her loyalty and obedience. But that's not how it's going to work. Tony isn't even sorry. He sees his behavior as acceptable. He's just sorry he got caught. Tony is gross. It's the next day and Tony has stopped by the house. He talks with the men privately. The way Lyndon and Tony laugh about getting into it last night, the night prior, made me believe more and more that it was a production play. My prediction for the bottom was that it was going to be Sue-Ann and Mercedes, with Sue-Ann going home. And Sue-Ann has to stop with the hair hats. She does. Like, she's just way too beautiful for that. My prediction for the bottom was spot on. Like, we don't know yet who's going home, but I still think it's going to be Sue-Ann. So we have Mercedes and Sue-Ann in the bottom. I still think Sue-Ann's going to go home. Next episode, the guy is going home. So I think that's going to make it spicy. And Cynthia and Anthony are going to kiss. Morgan is going to kiss Lyndon. A lot's going to go down. So I'm hoping it's a little more eventful than this episode. All that really happened this episode was the Tony and Lyndon back and forth at the dinner table. Other than that, nothing else really went down. So this video is short. It was kind of a boring episode, honestly, but I thank you for tuning in, and we will catch it next week. Bye, y'all.